Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business. With advice and insights from the best in the biz, I'm your host, Lynell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. I'm Lynell Gordon, your host, and I have a guest with us this morning, John Stokinger. John has a podcast of his own called the No BS Vacation Rental Podcast.
It's the No BS podcast. It used to be the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, but it was such a mouthful. We just went to the No BS podcast.
Now, tell me what you talk about on your show.
The No BS podcast is an unfiltered look at the short-term rental and hospitality industry.
Cool. Since we're both podcasters, we could do this. Let's talk about our favorite people on the podcast. What are things that you've learned that you just jaw-dropping on the podcast that you went, wow, that would help people? And I am shocked that it hasn't come out.
The most important and the biggest things that we've seen, whether it doesn't necessarily matter the person we're interviewing, is, when you can get someone to be their authentic self and really come out of their shell. And, we've had people cry in our podcast. We've had people, just really be, open up to ourselves about, things that are really important to them.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And to be able to kind of chip away and understand, how these property managers or these founders or these CEOs or, I guess our podcast is geared towards, founders and CEOs as our audience. But, we'll interview, I don't know, it's been pretty crazy. Like, I don't know, have you followed the Savannah Bananas at all? Have you ever heard of them?
No, tell me.
So the Savannah Bananas are a minor league. It's not even like a baseball team that is based out of Savannah, Georgia. We interviewed the owner of the Savannah Bananas, and he wears this yellow tux, and he's done all these motivational speaking all over. And we had him on because he, a couple of years ago, we had him on our podcast because he and his wife, who started the Savannah Bananas, have a few property managers. So it's again, focused on hospitality, right? They have a few rentals on, that they rent out. But their team is, think of the Globetrotters, the Harlem Globetrotters for basketball, right? But it's actual, like, it's not scripted. So it's actual competitive. So they play against the Savannah Bananas play against the this other team, maybe the Wild Things. I'm not sure really like the name of the other team right now, but they used to just play in Savannah. And then they've gone ahead and now they're playing all across the US in these games. They just played at Fenway.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. They have their own TV show now, but it's on ESPN. But to be able to go ahead and interview these people, these individuals that are like changing things in the industry. And it's all, so their whole thing is like guest first or like people first. Like that's the Savannah Bananas. It's like a big circus show almost, right? But to be able to, we learned so much from that conversation with this gentleman about putting people first and in hospitality and just, the entertainment side of the thing, because if you think of, I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball, right? But for most people that don't love baseball, you're going to think this is a boring game, right? It's like, all right, here's 9 innings, and
I like baseball. My husband doesn't. There are no sports. We are an academic family. A lot of academia. My husband's a biblical scholar, and so we travel all over the world examining ancient manuscripts, and that's the truth. I get to go in. It's really remarkable. Sometimes I don't. I've been really fortunate to be able to be inside the Vatican, inside the back areas where some of the most important manuscripts in the Bible of the world are held. So, and seen them in person. So for us, baseball, we like baseball. I like baseball. I grew up with baseball as the main sport in my household that people loved. But let me tell you, the last time I was on a podcast and I was myself, they asked questions and I told the truth, which is, you can tell the truth and you can be completely honest, which is not always the best. But at this point, it was a friend of mine whose podcast and I told complete truth. And I know he ended up crying. I was crying. And at the end of it, he said, I'm going to have to talk to my attorneys and make sure that I can share this. He said, because I think this person will sue me. And I was like, this person is dead. They can't sue anyone now.
Yeah.
This is why I'm talking about it. But we didn't. But I said, just hold off on it. So it was too raw, too truthful for him to share. Now, let me tell you, that got me thinking. And that was like in the last 3 months.
Mhm.
That really got me thinking about, do people really want the truth? Do they want the truth? Or do they want a really nice way to tell the truth?
Depends on what your definition of the truth is. There are some people in this industry that I think that their definition of the truth is different than my definition of the truth, and anyone that's listening can read into that however you want. I don't feel what I love about our industry is that we're so open and we can communicate with each other, and, and competitors are friends. I'm on an Inhabit podcast and I'm not an Inhabit brand. We work with 2 Inhabit companies today, hoping to work with more. Both Lynell Gordon and Limbrook are directs, are partners of ours.
We are friendly competitors. We all drink together, have a drink at the bar at the end of the day, whether or not
and
it's coffee
it's
or tequila,
yeah,
depending on the day.
and it's great, that's what I love about this industry. Coming from other industries where you'd go to trade shows and everything's cutthroat, and there's trade secrets, and like we're all here trying to elevate the industry as a whole. And
That's true.
that's what I love about short-term rentals and overall. With that, there are some bad actors and there's politics. And I love politics. I love seeing how it plays out, and just understanding. Like when I first came in 7 years ago, and this is one of my favorite stories, like I think I might have met you at my first show ever. And this is where I met Mateo in the No BS podcast, was in Gatlinburg at the,
How much fun was that?
in 2017. My first show was there in Gatlinburg, Amy High Notes, VRM Intel. It was like such an interesting, because I've never been to Gatlinburg before too, which is, if you've never been to Gatlinburg, it's crazy. Think of like boardwalk, like Myrtle Beach boardwalk in the middle of the most beautiful place in the world. So it's like 2 different things. It's like moonshine and debauchery, and like just these most beautiful, like Smoky Mountains. I met Mateo there, and this is kind of where the idea of real conversations came out. It's like, oh, it'd be cool if we had a podcast or something to talk about these kind of things. But everything was so new to us back then.
To see the actual transparency between property managers and between vendors at some of these conferences, it's rewarding. I've interviewed people. I think the most shocking interview that I did this year, and it just aired, was Justin Ford, who talked about safety. He blew my mind. I said, please do a second interview right there on the spot. Luckily, I can finish the things that I start, which is the key to doing multiple things if you're going to do them. But he spoke about things that I implemented in my property management, in my personal vacation rental property this year. I was like, this has to happen. Several things, actually, not just on safety, but on convenience. And he's a vendor.
Justin's super sharp. I can't believe he hasn't been on our podcast yet. When we actually talked to him about that, I saw him up in Banff at the Can Stay show. I said, we really need to get you on. We can't believe it hasn't happened. I saw him speak at a VRM or a vacation rental, like one of their VRMA Connect up in the Northeast in Portland, Maine. And he's a Mainer. I'm actually I'm from Maine originally. And so we're up there, and he had the story of this woman whose home burned down, and it was insane. Like he can touch an audience, and his presentations are like none other. And I've seen his and spiel's the wrong choice of words. So Justin, if you're listening, it's not a spiel, because it's important.
We know what you're we know what
it's important. It's I know his presentation pretty well, but he keeps updating it. He brings current information in, and it resonates. And if you've never listened to Justin speak, it's powerful. And it might not always be the sunniest, shiniest thing that you want to have associated with vacation rentals and the short-term rental industry, but it's necessary.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the pretty story, but it is the necessary one. Like you talk about, tell me what your favorite conferences are to go to.
Well, I'm going to give Catherine Radcliffe's her conference that we just went to recently up at Kansas was up in Banff, Canada, was pretty phenomenal. It was the first annual, so it wasn't, a huge needle mover yet, but it was necessary. And the conversations that we had up there in Canada were new. The audience was like chomping at the bit. It was the first conference in Canada, truly the first conference with Canadian content as the focus. As a recent conference I went to, that was probably, it resonated well. DARM is a fantastic show. I love Amy High-Note's DARM conference. VRMA International is a good one. We'll keep it at that for Verma right now.
Nobody's really talking. We're not talking about that right now. We're just
I
kind
can
of
talk about it. I'll talk about it all day. I talked about it on our podcast.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Good for you.
If I'll go there.
You're going to be honest, you have to talk about it. And
I think my personal opinions, not the opinions of my co-host, or I'm not speaking for him and I'm not speaking for Direct. I'm speaking for me personally.
Oh, that's good. Let's do that.
I think that VRMA peaked and they need to basically rip the Band-Aid off and really evaluate their conference. And overall, just their content overall. I feel that they need to, personal opinion, again, they need to eliminate every other conference other than Vermont International. Stop with all the connects, stop with international. I mean, not international, stop with Europe.
The one in Europe.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
Stop it. Take the funds, take the relationship, and just put on the best damn show you can do in Phoenix and every other year. My understanding is that they probably purchased a spring forum already for next year, right? So kill them all other than Verma International, and then take the content. And I'm going to shout out to Inhabit and shout out to Streamline, who puts on the best user conference.
They do.
They put on the best user conference out there. And you know why? It's the content. It's the educational content. It's the tiered content that's very well thought out, from beginner, intermediate, and advanced content.
I agree.
Do something comparable at Verma International, and don't pay to play. Like you have to go ahead and you have to get like the whole, how they do the educational choice and what is wrong. It's totally effed up. And I think if they were to go ahead and just rip that Band-Aid off and really evaluate what they're doing and put the host and the property manager first, all right, I'm spending, it doesn't have to be free, right? Like
No.
I love that some of these shows are free in these regional shows, and I think they win because they are, you can go to them. These pop-up shows that are like a one-day thing, a half a day, that are free for hosts and property managers are such great content, because they could just go and they could suck up all the information. And they're great for vendors too, right? Because vendors are going to get people that are really hungry. But for Verma, they need to take a hard look at themselves. And I'm a Verma proponent, but I'm okay to call them out that they need to take a hard look in the mirror and really focus on and the educational, and they can't be chosen the way, like, the presentations can't be chosen the way they're chosen.
They can't be chosen based on money, and they have been chosen based on the amount of revenue that you give to.
And they'll deny that.
No, you can't deny it, because it's based on, because if you do a certain amount of sponsorship, you get a place to speak. And depending on how expensive that is, you'll get to speak at the main hall with everybody. I'll tell you my opinion. I haven't given my opinion yet.
I'm very interested.
But I will tell you, in my opinion, we are demonizing the wrong people. It really isn't the board who is benefiting or not benefiting from these meetings. Although there have been people that have intentionally benefited. That's in any organization, you have that, guys. But the thing is this, it has to be about education for the property managers that's relevant to what they do every single day of their life.
Yep.
One of the most important educational pieces that we've seen at Verma, there've been a couple The first one was when Trent Blizzard would talk about the internet, and it was like gold because a lot of the things he said no one knew, and it was important to tell. Another one was when you had people like Scott Leggett and people that have been in the industry a very long time. You know who you are. He paired with other people and they would talk statistical analysis. They would talk about how to do your stats. People that have been in the industry for a long time who would speak up and talk like Carol.
Her daughter, Michelle.
her
Michelle's
daughter
one of
now.
my favorite people in the whole world.
Honestly, they're important to the industry. They're founders. They are mainstay. I agree 100%, John. They are good, honest, hardworking people who just want to do the right thing. What happens is that when you allow your educational committees to be headed by people who have agendas, I can tell you that I was blackballed. I've been blackballed before in this industry from speaking because the people that were in charge didn't like me. Did that make me want to run for office and try to get in those positions? No, they change every few years. I'm not going to live or die on what someone, if you don't like me, hey, that's your choice. I'm pretty outspoken and I know that.
I agree wholeheartedly with you.
But firm is a good thing. And I agree. I actually like their Europe. I think they should have 2 shows, one here in the States and one in Europe. They have a lot of good content that they can share at the European that I've been to. The first 2 that I went to were.
I would rather them, I like what you're going with this, but I'd rather them just partner with like a Scale or one of these that are doing it. They're doing it really well over there already. Like the resources should be put here to the Americas because this is where the majority, and we could still go and we could still support and we could still bring content there without having to think about if we took like how expensive it is to put on a show. If we put those resources to just here and put those resources to making it more affordable for more hosts to show and property managers to show up, right? And actually open it up really to hosts. Like they say they open it up to hosts, but none of the content is geared toward hosts. Let's talk about this whole professionally managed thing right now. Like I think we need to get rid of the word professionally managed completely.
John, your vacation rental not being a manager is showing. That hat needs to come on. Put that hat on and I'll tell you why professional is important. Not only is professional important, we should have certifications that we offer.
It's 100% important. The problem is the definition of professional in VRMA standards.
You mean excluding people?
Yeah,
we don't want the exclusion part. I agree.
And they're looking at it as a number. Like I'm a professionally managed, so I operate 30 or more units, right? Whereas I know plenty of hosts, right, that have 3, 4, 5 units that are operating in a professional manner. So the definition of professional is 100% what we should be doing. And professionally managed is the way to go. As at VRMA, it's like, I know so many property managers and I see this more in urban markets that have 100, 150, 200 units and they operate like crap.
It's not intentional. It's just that they're learning. There's a lot of people that are learning. And guest, unfortunately, is the one that gets hit by that.
How We Grow has partnered with Lynell Gordon to bring the vacation rentals market custom protection products built for the needs of the vacation rental industry. Enjoy complete protection for both your travelers and your owners via the industry's leading travel, damage, and liability protection products. Learn more about the travel tech industry's most advanced travel and damage protection platform and API at rentalguardian.com.
So I agree with you. Exclusionary shouldn't be a part of what we do with our conferences. Now, people don't want to sit around and have nothing but people sell to them. That's true. So we have to have some thought around how we include vendors in this. But I think that the conferences are some of the best things that we do in the whole industry for the education of property managers.
They've just changed recently. They're not what they used to be. Think of when, 2020 or when we first came back from COVID, or 2021, when we first started coming back, or when we had our first show, it was a huge uptick in attendance. And mostly, I think the focus on education was in the right place. And there was a lot of new people. So a lot of the content was, the generalized, content worked for everybody. But now these people, these individuals, these property managers that have come for the first time, say, to a show, right? They got all that great information now they're coming back year 2 and the information's the same. nothing's really changed for them. Don't get me wrong. The most important thing about a conference, and you and I both know this, is the networking. But you can't go spend $2,000 to bring you and your crew and or that's a minimum, right? For just you and one
I
other person.
can't imagine it being only $2,000.
Yeah, exactly. And especially now with
you.
everything's going up, like think of there needs to be an ROI for both vendors and property managers.
So here's one thing to think about too. When you take a class, no matter what kind of educational class it is, let me give you an example. I took modern Hebrew language at Hebrew University last year, and come a month and a half, I'm going to take that same course again. Why am I taking the same course? I'm taking the same course because it is a somewhat rupan, which means it is very fast paced. We learn 500 vocabulary words a week, more or less. There's no way to retain that. And so I'm going back because I need to know more about the same thing that I learned because I didn't learn everything. So when we teach a class, there should be certification classes that people can come in and learn some basic business concepts so they can send sending my accounting manager to a trust accounting class. We do that in North Carolina for our professional education, and you learn how to do that. But there are things that you only learn from experience. And so having someone speak and if it's very popular, having them speak again, I don't have a problem with that. Having them speak for 5 years might be a problem, but having the same class twice, I'm good with, especially if it's in the same year or consecutive years. Here's the second part of what we did if it's important. But you're right, that's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening is the same people do the same things every year for a long time.
I agree with you. Like having a course that you can retake and sharpen your skills and re-immerse yourself in that, and be like, oh, I might not have caught that the first time around, or I just caught that this time around. What we're not talking about too is that a lot of times these are based on what presentation is going to get the biggest
audience.
Yeah. Who are we going to get on stage that's going to maybe cause a ruckus
or maybe disruption in the industry?
Yeah.
Who's causing disruption? Let's talk about disruption. Let's talk about VR Nation.
Yeah, I haven't gone. And it's hard because these are some of my favorite people.
Yeah, I know, right?
I love Brian Olson. I love that whole crew over there in Northwest VRP, which is now VR Nation. I had to make some hard calls this year, just with speaking of ROI.
We all do.
I chose CanStays over that one this year.
I'm interested in seeing what they're doing. They are taking the same tack that you're talking about in education. They're doing that. Verma, I think will get themselves together. They've got good people at the helm now, in my opinion. They have some really good people that care about the industry. They'll get things together. And I think a lot of their decisions were pushed by bad management, in my opinion. Property managers, they're busy, they're working on their own stuff, and they depended on people to guide them in the professional conference arena. And that ended up being a bad thing because there were some bad decisions that came out of that. And they weren't property managers making the decisions, in my opinion. I mean, they were. Ultimately, they did. But it was being pushed by people who just were not intentionally trying to harm or intentionally doing something. If you look at things it's like this. Think about this. You look at things from a business perspective, and you can make a different decision than what's best for the industry. You can make a decision on what's best for the business. And that's what they were kind of doing, making a decision based on what's best for best for making money for VRMA. That may not be the best for best thing for the property managers, but they've got their stuff together. They heard the wake-up call. Steve Milo shouted out really clear, and they heard what he said. As always, does not mince his words, and he's very outspoken about what he believes. I think there's a lot of people in the industry that benefited from what he said and the things that he did. Now, I really love the people that are in management there, the people who are on the board. They're friends, and I think they are all good people, not poor intentioned. I can tell you that.
I agree.
The funny thing, and I know Steve would agree with me on this, Scott Leggett, who was on the board and has been on the board a lot because he's brilliant and he should be on the board as much as we can.
I love Scott.
We've had him
on the podcast a couple times now.
He's marvelous. But there's no time that he says, gee, I have a free flight and a free room, and that's why I'm doing this. Never would he say that. And neither would a bunch of people that I know there. They don't have a problem affording it. I was talking with Susan Blizzard last week about this. They're good people. So I just want to make sure that when we come out of this thing with Verma, that it's not the people that we've demonized in this, because there were some bad things. It's the processes and it's the management company. They should change management companies, in my opinion. I know they changed managers, don't care. I think you should get a new perspective.
It's good. You put it out there. You're getting a little no BS on the how we grow. That's good.
Well, tell me this, for vacation rental managers, I want to go back to how has the financial piece where merchant processing and that, how has that changed in the last bit of time? Are you still into that? Do you still know what's happening? Do you have a finger on that pulse?
I kind of understand. Understand how it works, because that's how I came into the industry. After a year and a half or however many months I was there, it's like the most unsexy thing in the world to sell. So nothing against that team there and all the other teams. It's hard. Changing payment processors outside of a PMS are the two hardest things to truly switch out. What has become easier? There are different ways to accept payments, and these payment processors like Ascent and Limbrook and these other companies that have come into the space have made it easier to go ahead and approve property managers. They've made it easier to go ahead, and so you don't necessarily need to dive into your books like you're managing a new home or buying a new home, and then it's like 2 years of financials and stuff like that. If you want the best rates, you still have to go ahead and do that. But a host, or someone with 5, 6, 7 units can go in and get approval very quickly outside of just a Stripe or something. They can, like Limbrook can come in and approve them very quickly. And the payment process and how they go ahead and reconcile will be similar to like a Stripe. So that has changed recently, which is great, because it allows property managers that are using payment processing solutions that aren't necessarily focused on hospitality accessible to them. And then once you're established as a property management company, it gets easier and easier for them to get better and better rates. So I think that's what's changed in the 7, 8, 8, 9 years now that I've been in the industry. That has changed on the processing side.
Is there anything you want to tell property managers?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that trust your gut. I think that, as a property manager that's margins are getting smaller and smaller. It's harder and harder to go ahead and make, I don't know, be profitable. And so you have to go ahead and look at, how do I expand those margins a little bit? But there's a lot of shiny things out there. And you talked earlier about vaporware. It's just because it's shiny doesn't mean it's great. So really, I think the thing is, look at your solutions, look at your business, and understand if if you'd like to change it, it's possible, but it might not be the best decision, but it might be. It's okay to go ahead and I've been with X thing for so long, and it's okay to potentially, what else is out there, but do your homework. Because if you don't do your homework, then you're going to end up getting burned. But
I love that vendors tell property managers, do your homework. We really mean it, because not all solutions fit. It's not a one fit all solution. People do business differently in different places, and so different software solutions will fit you differently.
And I interviewed property managers. I will not allow some property managers to come on because I don't feel they're a good fit. When I'm talking to anybody, my conversations are always consultative. And the first thing I'll tell them is that, I want to make sure that we're a good fit for each other. We may or may not be a good fit. If we're not a good fit, I'm okay with that. And I'm very upfront with that. If I'm not a good fit for you, I'm not a salesy type of guy. That's not who I am. I want you to trust me, and you have to trust who's selling you. And selling is hard, because they're salesmen and women, salespeople get a bad rep because of the whole used car salesman analogy, like smoke and mirrors. And there isn't a lot of that go on. I truly believe that most of us from all the different, companies in this space, truly believe our solution is solid.
Here's the way I think about it. If I can help someone to make their business run better, if I can help someone to make their life easier, especially their business life, man, that gives me such great pleasure. I used to love to go into companies and look at how they did business and give them ideas. I never tell anybody how to do their business, but I give them ideas on how other people do the same things that they do.
Yeah.
And that, to me, you affect the world when you do that. When I sold real estate, I recognized the fact that, salespeople do get a bad rap, but what I was doing was helping people make the most important decision financially they'd ever make in their whole life for the most part. It's buying a house is the biggest financial decision most people will ever make, the most money they'll ever put out.
Yeah.
So I better be good at what I do and make sure that people get put in a good position. One of my favorite success stories is Scott Leggett, believe it or not. I hope he listens to this. He came to work for my company, my software company. I was so stoked and happy. But I helped him find a house.
I met Scott at that show in Gatlinburg with you. That's when I met you and Scott. And that was like my first show. I met Scott and you guys.
Love him. But I sold he and his wife a house, and I said to them, I know this is a little above the price range you were talking about, but this particular area will grow. You will make money off of this house if you buy it. And I knew he would. Statistically, there could be a market crash, right? And they knew that. And we did a lot of praying. I did a lot of praying. We found a house, and even today, they spend a good amount of time there for lots of reasons. It's been a really great investment for them and a great place for them to spend time. And I get such pleasure when I think about that house. I think about the fact that God allowed me to help them to find something that really would eventually make a difference in their life. Scott had some medical issues, and he needed to be near Duke and that area, because that's where that medical care is. And they have a place they can go and stay there. I mean, he's doing great. The man he's the healthiest person I ever met. But, having that just gave me such great pleasure on the inside. And I think that there are a lot of people that do sales that are like that in our industry. I know that if I help someone to pick the right products for their property management company, it's going to make a difference in their life. It's what you said, John, earlier, gives them more time to balance their work and their personal and their business load. Those kinds of softwares that literally save you time, those are remarkably important.
The one other thing I wanted to say, in a beige world, as I'm a property manager, right? And in a beige world, how do you differentiate yourself from your competition? These are what hosts and property managers need to go ahead and be thinking about all the time. When everything is cookie cutter and everything is the same, and we've had this influx of inventory since COVID that is in the majority of the markets, and everyone's got some rental thing. And how do you make your property stand out from the rest? And these are the questions that property managers should be asking or homeowners and property managers should be asking themselves. Is like, what do I need to do? And it's not all about luxury, right? We see all these property management, podcasts and shows talking about make it luxury, it doesn't have to be luxury, right? Because there's a market. Like I'm a new family with 2 small kids. Maybe I personally can't afford luxury, but I still want to go ahead and have a
beach vacation, a beach box.
Yeah, anything, something that stands out from when you're scrolling, like, and everything's the same. If you look at a condo complex down in Gulf Shores, or, and they all look the same, like, how do you make your unit stand out from everyone else's? Like, these are the things that I think that hosts and property managers will really, if they make these small changes, and it can be small things, but I think that's the big differentiator, is like, how do you make your unit stand out in a very beige cookie cutter world?
This is the truth. I think that it's important we make our software and everything else stand out just the same way. John, thank you for being with me. I really have enjoyed our conversation. It has been really interesting, and we've covered a broad base of topics. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Ready to rock your business? Join us at this year's Streamline Summit Rhythm in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. This September 4th through the 6th, dive into an electrifying 3-day event filled with industry insights, networking, and hands-on training. From visionary speakers to the latest vacation rental tech trends, the Streamline Summit is your backstage pass to property management stardom. Kick off with our legendary opening party, take a swing at our charity golf tournament benefiting the Children's Cancer Network, and end on a high note with a closing bash you won't forget. You'll learn from industry rock stars like keynote speaker Amber Erickson Hurdle, a hospitality veteran and top 30 branding professional known for her high-energy talks on personal and business branding. And don't miss featured speaker Galen Emanuel, a world-class improviser and international speaker, transforming team dynamics with clients like Microsoft and NASA. Get your groove on with fellow professionals and amplify your success. Don't miss a beat. Visit streamlinesummit.com and snag your ticket today.
This episode of How We Grow is brought to you by Rental Guardian. To find out more about how Rental Guardian can help grow your vacation rental business, visit rentalguardian.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.